so I'll start with the subconscious. So in Piaget's model, the subconscious is a gradient of thought rather than the 3 layers of Freud. It's a field where disassociation takes place. So your consciousness is supposed to sit in the middle of this field, but what happens is traumatic events can happen. So traumatic events can happen, which spawns a fixed belief, because this traumatic instance can't exist in a vacuum. It can't just sit there by itself without any structure. Otherwise it would just dissipate into the whole instantly. So if it wants to keep its form as a traumatic event, it has to build structure. So it builds fixed beliefs which cause consciousness to move away from the center and closer to these fixed beliefs. And it's kind of like tendrils taking over perception, emotions, memory, even actions. And I wouldn't say everything, but as negative as the event is how much it's going to affect the subconscious and then thereby pull the conscious mind closer to it, so the traumatic event doesn't live in a vacuum. Then there are also something I've come across recently with semi-re-traumatizing myself. There are vessels. So vessels are essentially the same as fixed belief, not nearly as chaotic, right? Vessels can be spawned from relationships, in doing your own inner work, so constructing your own vessel to hold certain types of emotions. They can spawn through relationships via the pouch effect. I don't know if you've probably heard of that, but it's essentially where you're in a relationship for a long time and the woman you're with kind of constructs like a womb for you to live in and for your internal world. So a vessel, and then your external momentum is kind of your external momentum bringing home the bacon or whatever is kind of protected. Women are masters of the internal world, and men are masters of the external world. It's like that thing you hear in like spiritual circles where people say women are magnetic. It's not as simple as just magnetic and electric, but essentially, or micro, so internal, and then macro, external. Okay, so I'm getting off topic here, but as a dude, you can externally, rather than needing a woman to build this vessel for you, this cocoon, this comfortable cocoon for you to live in, you can press your will up against the world and build your own vessel, not a cocoon, not as in like, and this is like a dangerous subject, because this stuff, I've heard stories of this stuff really ruining lives, as in woman builds a cocoon around a guy is completely love blind, and then the guy is hasn't done the internal work himself to make sure he's morally good, morally good and just, and then his will, which has been protected by this womb, is being his will is being guarded by this womb. Okay, so as a dude, you can either go two routes. Externally, got to find a woman and get her to build me another cocoon, and you're going to end up dying wanting milk. Yeah, and it can lead into dangerous territories. But it's just not good. It's just not good for society as a whole for dudes not to take account of, okay, how does my father affect me as a human being? How does my mother affect me as a human being? How do my beliefs, which change my actions, how does that change the external world? Does it change the external world for better or for worse? Rather than just chasing that external validation and going, I need a partner to feel validated, therefore I don't have to do this work and this type of work that I'm kind of preaching is very difficult. So there's four stages. There's four. So there's So alchemically, you'll go through if you want to actually build your own vessel rather than being swallowed up by this cocoon, you have to go through these four stages. There's kind of 5 stages. I'll just layer. And if you want to actually change your mental state, you have to get shit out of your head. So you come into contact with your unconscious. However you do that, you might do that by writing, you might do that by creating something and letting the automatic movements of your body show your eyes, essentially, the light that comes in from what is being projected from your consciousness, that niche construction which you are changing your environment by. So you're soaking in this light of the information that's being poured out of your psyche automatically in this flow state. That's when you're coming into contact with the unconscious or the shadow. Then after that, say this is just the general, probably this is how it's been for me. The rule of thumb is generally 1 week. The rule of thumb is generally do 1 hour a week. That's very healthy. 1 hour of shadow work per week. But if you do a lot, and you do it, like say if you do 1 hour every day over the course of a week, expect like at least 2 weeks 2 weeks of recovery. So then you go into the depression phase, which is the whitening. So the negredo is the blackening. Albedo is the whitening, where all the, say if you have, and this is how you're building your own vessel, right? The black, you're coming into contact with all the black material, the mold or whatever you want to call it. You're heating it up by doing your shadow work, by doing your journaling, by painting or drawing or writing, just letting your mind channel out that information. You're heating up the vessel. Then you are in the albedo stage, the depression. You are washing out the material and separating different aspects which survived the burn. So if something can survive the burn, that's what you want to use and move forward with. So say your negredo goes for a week, albedo goes for 2 to 3 weeks, say a month. Then comes the citrinus, when you've washed away those impurities. So you're left with, you've had all this psychic substance in your mind, and you're left with just a little bit, just a lot less, more purified substance. Then you move into the citrinus stage, which is a very tricky stage, because you won't be sure, am I in early citrinus, or is this, am I in early citrinus or not? Have I already made it into citrinus? I'm starting to feel happier. Then you fall back into that albedo depression. And this is the happy stage. Things start to brighten up. You've went through the blackening. You've come into contact with the unconscious. You've gone into the depression stage, where all of those impurities, and there's the dying of the self in between. That's where these impurities kind of drop off. Then in the albedo stage, they start purifying. These bits start purifying. Then you move into citrinus, the happy stage, where things are kind of coming together properly and forming something anew. And then you're moving into the rubedo stage, where you're embodying those changes that you have made. So say, for example, you're a dude, you're pressing your will against the world, you're trying to make something of yourself, but you've got these habits and these unconscious, or you may not know, but you've got these unconscious patterns which are constantly pulling you down. So pulling you down, right? So to move forward and break these patterns, you can't just go, okay, think positive. People tell you think positive, that will just fix everything. That won't fix a thing, because all you're doing is putting lipstick on a pig, and you are essentially, you're telling yourself over and over again that, okay, think positive. You're forcing your mind to move into a point where it's happier. That's just causing another fixed, or actually it wouldn't be causing another fixed belief, but all you'd be telling yourself is, I'm not happy, I need to force myself to be happy. I need to force myself to be grateful. Therefore, feeding that loop of, or feeding into that fixed belief, which is then trauma. And when I say trauma, I don't mean the worst thing that has possibly that has happened to anyone ever, like you go through a massive car crash or something, or you go through a horrible breakup, or you go through anything that's really shattering of the psyche. It could mean from the smallest things that are happening, say inside your family, say, and this is actually a very common one, say someone gets called fat over and over and over again while they're younger, they're a bit chubby or something, and then they get called fat over and over and over again, and then they develop an eating disorder. So that's essentially where this trauma comes from. And going to a psychologist for something like this would be advisable as your first bet. But if you're someone who's going to a psychologist and you want to take things up in your own mind, I recommend this system and looking into the Greater Alberto Citrinus Pierre Genet, and not trying to just think positively all the time. So rubedo, you've taken this fixed belief, this traumatic event. So you've got all these micro events which are causing this fixed belief, and for this trauma to survive in your subconscious, it needs this fixed belief. You said you've started to dissolve it by coming into contact with the unconscious, or the shadow. So that would, or the subconscious, sorry, my bad. The subconscious, the unconscious is the border, and it's a ring that sits around the subconscious, which is usually where the deepest, most fundamental. So say if you have a fixed belief in your unconscious, they are very hard to access, but something in your subconscious is something more advisable to actually go after if you want to move on this journey of actually becoming a more whole, unified individual, which is constructed out of something still your substance, because you're building this vessel from your subconscious, from your trauma. So you're going, I've got this thing, my whole life I've been told I'm lazy, and I've internalized that fixed belief. Then you go and you come into contact with your, I'll just say subconscious for now. You come into contact with your subconscious through breath work, meditation, journaling, whatever you got to do to figure out what exactly is going on, and figure out as many angles to attack and dissolve this material as you possibly can. But it's also called the shadow. The traumatic instance is not held in your body in some magical, not some magical sphere of thought like it looks like here. This is just the best way to articulate the point. It is held in your breathing patterns, your heart rate, your reactions to the world, everything. So you're coming into contact with this fixed belief. You then go into the blackening stage where you're dissolving this fixed belief. The old self dies. So that is essentially a separate form of consciousness from your main point of self, or your main point of consciousness. That old self dies. Then you go into this depression. Something has died in your subconscious, the automatic mind. So your nervous system and your mind take a long while to catch back up. Then you're happy. Okay. Then you become happy because you've started forming out of this old vessel, a new vessel, which is actually yours. You start to become happy. This old negative stuff is, this old negative raw material, prima materia, is dissolving. Then you can move into the rubedo stage where you're actually embodying this new vessel, this new artistic piece inside of your subconscious mind. So if you're a dude, build a vessel. Build a vessel. Get rid of this shit out of your mind. Get rid of this shit out of your mind and build something new. because you will feel everyone gets one lifetime, and if you don't do this work and remove the shit from your childhood as best as you possibly can, preferably with a professional, you're going to suffer for it. You're going to hit 50, have a midlife crisis, and be super depressed, and it happens over and over again. Where do you think the term midlife crisis comes from? I'm pretty sure there's no neurological changes going on at 50. There's 25 and 32. But these people hit their half life, and they've got all this stuff that they could have gotten rid of when they were younger, when they had the opportunity, when they had. Usually people wait till they've got a bit more time. But when your mind is still developing, you get rid of this stuff so you can embody that newly constructed self out of this old material. If you're a dude, be careful of getting too comfortable. Be careful of getting too comfortable. Be careful of not striving for something better, to strive to actually change the world for a positive benefit of all, whatever thing you want to add to it. Build something new, because human beings essentially, fundamentally, are creative, and via creating life, so use that force to build something better inside of yourself, so you can stop these actions or these habits which are causing you, suffering. So you're seeing yourself do, okay, imagine this big bottle of grog. I'm seeing myself drink this big bottle of grog. You keep asking, why am I drinking? Why am I drinking? Because something happened when you were still developing, whatever. Something happened while you were still developing that caused you to want to escape, to push down. That's probably important. It's probably important as well. So that's essentially the basics of. That's essentially the basics of forming a new vessel out of trauma. And there's many techniques to do this. Journaling is often the best one. No, not journaling is probably not the best one. The best one would be going to a professional, because it is their job to help you with this process. But doing your own journaling rather than trying to escape is most likely, or is more useful than just escaping. Building that new vessel. Drawing a crown today. Okay, so here's more of a spiritual. So that's the contents of your body. That's the contents of your body, and how to change things subconsciously, alchemically, to build a new vessel which actually holds the raw experiential data which you want. And one important piece of this puzzle, which I'll get to soon, so you have the 7 chakras: root, root, sacral, solar plexus, heart, throat, third eye, crown. So you have these chakras, and I don't really like using the chakra systems, but they're more of an experiential type of thing where you feel them rather than theoretically know them. So you can feel, okay, my will is being pushed against the world better, pushed up against the world better because my solar plexus has been healed from whatever. So whatever it is. So that the first section was the mind, how to change this circuitry, this neurological circuitry in the mind. And this is more of where this sits, where all of this sits in the body, the navigation of these fixed beliefs. Because think of it as the circle. Think of it as the circle in the subconscious mind. But every it's not just the subconscious mind, it's every single aspect of your body. Let's draw a dude here. A really big-headed dude. Really big-headed dude with some curly hair. Okay. So it's these subconscious patterns are held all over, energetically all over the body. Okay, but the most important piece is you have the heart chakra. If your heart chakra is messed up, your desires are messed up. And everyone likes to think of the ego. Everyone likes to think of the ego as some negative force. Or you have a massive ego, or you have whatever the fuck. That's just what people have told me. So kind of projecting there a little bit. But the ego is essentially the exact same mechanism for every human being. It is literally there to fulfill energetically your desires. And if your desires coming from the middle, the heart, and electromagnetically the heart has a field which is essentially, if that is off, what you're attracting is off. So the ego is there, move around, kind of like in Homer's Odyssey. I don't know all the details of this. This is what I assumed it was. The muse in the subconscious. So I'm just doing, or the unconscious. This is more of the Freudian, the muse in the unconscious. Like a fairy or a helper or whatever. It's just there, the ego is just there to fulfill your desires. You have the higher self, the crown, the third eye, the throat. That's where you connect to God. You see, not just with you don't just see with your eyes, you see with that internal sense. So you're seeing through that internal sense, and where you speak, where you project your truth out onto the world. You have the heart where your desires are. If your heart is broken or not doing well, you're going to be attracting all of these negative things into your physical reality, spawning more fixed beliefs in the whole system. So say a fixed belief causes your solar plexus to close up. I should have colours, that would have been awesome. Causes your solar plexus to close up and mess with you energetically. So it's going, I want the excess energy from the solar plexus, this fixed belief. I want the excess energy of the solar plexus. So I'm going to sit, keep it close, siphon that energy, that the person will have a weaker solar plexus overall. And that's that prima materia. That's that prima materia of emotion, so, or energy in motion. Okay, and then you've got the solar plexus, which is your will. You've got the sacral, which is your creativity and your sexuality, and then you've got the root, which is your safety. And you could say your connection to Earth is kind of from the root, but I wouldn't get into the spiritual mechanics. So you've got the lower chakras, which is your shadow self. So these are your survival chakras. Your heart is in the middle between your higher self and your shadow self, your survival self. These are your higher chakras, which are essentially I'm not sure about all animal. I've got no clue about animal chakras and stuff. I know dogs and cats have them, I believe. But you can think of this as neurolinguistically linking different elements of the spine. Neurolinguistically linking different elements of the spine to just words or to language. So your connection to God. I think I'll skip this. So what you essentially do is the heart has negative desires, the ego fulfills those desires, then they stuff them down into the lower chakras or block up the higher chakras. And I'm kind of reaching with this. I haven't done much research. The chakras are an impossible thing to actually understand properly, because they are more of an experiential part of consciousness. Okay, so this is the main gameplay loop of life. You take in information through the body, your soul reads it, it processes it, it organizes it. Let's draw another picture. And then your soul or consciousness, whatever you want to call it. I know a lot of people don't actually believe in souls, but if you don't believe in a soul, then you're soulless, bro. Like, it's simple as that. Then you have the soul projecting onto the third dimensional world. So that is essentially the gameplay loop. You have the 3D world, you have the external world, then you have your body, and then your soul living inside of your body. So it makes sense for it to actually be nested inside of the body there. But this is just the movement it goes through. Let's try that. Okay, that works perfectly with, so body, soul, yeah, that's good. Soul, body. But I'll keep it as this now to keep it simple. So you've got the external world, and you're taking in light information, you're taking in sound, you're taking in emotion, social cues, all of that stuff. And your consciousness is putting this here, putting this over there, putting this here. And you'll have a split. You'll have, like, with the first part of this, you'll have a split. Something that destroys your willpower. So you'll have a split, something that destroys your, messes with your heart, so messes with your desires. Yeah, it makes more sense. Something that messes with your desires. So you have that death desire, that death drive. You have a desire to act negatively towards the world. You have this, and this is common in a lot of people. A lot of people are like, oh yeah, I want to be better, I want to improve, I want all this stuff. But then subconsciously they have a fixed belief, which is saying, no, I don't actually want to live a better life. I want to stay exactly where I am and I don't want to move forward. A lot of people, I've noticed, I've just heard a lot of like Freudian slips, a lot of people operating like this. Which is no one's fault. It's just they haven't done that work to actually go, hey, do I want a better life? Do I wake up every day and go, I want to change things for the better? So your soul or your body, actually no. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Your soul doesn't live in any specific part of your body. Your consciousness can live in your foot if you're focusing your attention and observing what's going on inside your foot, or whatever. So I guess attention would be the attention or energy in motion or emotion, or imagination, which is more of an internal structure. Imagination, which is image in, so image E, image E, imagination, image in action. Patient means action. Attention, energy, emotion, imagination, image. I didn't write image in action, I just wrote imagination. Are the the fundamentals of the soul, or the fundamentals of consciousness. And then you have the body, and a part of the body is the meridian channels, and a part of those meridian channels are the chakras. So the external world, you're taking in light, you're taking in information, raw experiential data through your body into your soul, which is attention, energy, emotion, imagination, or image in action. Then all of this information is stored somewhere. Your memory, your mind, if it's something traumatic that takes away your willpower, it might be stored in the solar plexus. Then what is stored, then your soul is projecting through your body. So your body has taken on this traumatic event. So every single time you project onto the external world, you will keep projecting through that fixed belief which is stored in your nervous system or your meridian channels. And how does your soul actually project onto the outside world? How does your consciousness project onto the outside world? It projects through niche construction. Niche construction is a Darwinian idea where every organism, even single-celled organisms, will construct niches in their environment. So you will have something like Darwinian pressure pressing upon Darwinian pressure It's right up here. Darwinian pressure pressing upon an organism, say a single-celled organism, and then this organism will press its will. So Darwinian pressure is coming in from all angles. It presses its will externally. Let's just write externally onto the outside world. Externally onto the outside world, it will project a niche, like beavers building dams. It will project a niche onto the external world, which will then reinforce, okay, new light is now coming in. I've redesigned my bedroom. I've redesigned my home. I've redesigned my bedroom. I've cleaned my bathroom, whatever. New light is coming in, which is then being processed into your psyche. New light is coming in. New sound is coming in. New raw experiential data is coming in, which is being processed into your psyche. And then you are moving based upon what is coming in. So that's probably something to do with short-term and long-term memory, which is actually very important, because fixed beliefs stored in the body, and I'm basing this, so this emotional so long. External body has a reaction, stores somewhere in the body. If it's too traumatic, it will get stored, say the throat chakra, solar plexus, around that area, whatever. I think I'll leave it at that. I think that kind of, so that's, if you want to actually manifest something into the real world, all you have to do, and people say you can just think affirmations, whatever. All you have to do is go through that. Go through that Negredo, Albedo, Citrinus, Rubedo, where you're dying, you're depressed but becoming happy about that old self dying, and then from the new self you are embodying that new self, that meeting with the subconscious or unconscious. So I think that's a good first video that it kind of explains. So I was learning new things as I was talking today, but that kind of explains what I've been doing and how to actually change, or the mechanics of actually changing your life. Solvet coagula. So that's making a lot of stuff and then dissolving that stuff and something new forming. And I'll probably have more to talk about the more I do this type of work, but that should be good enough for the first video.